Yes, there is a secret language that can change your life forever. And the crazy thing is that everybody speaks it. It's called the language of business, and it's based on the science of persuasion. This video is going to reveal this secret language so that you can start turning words into profits. This is an introduction to persuasion and influence. In this video, we are going to discuss how to make money with the language of business. If that sounds interesting enough for you, then please smash the like button and let's get started. Now, persuasion is the art of getting people to do what you want them to do by using words. This isn't about manipulation or trickery. Instead, it's about understanding how human brains work, how they make decisions, and then using that knowledge to influence people in a positive way. Persuasion is all around us. It's used by politicians to convince voters to vote for them, by advertisers to convince consumers to buy products, and by salespeople to close deals. But you can use it too to become a better communicator, to build stronger relationships, and to achieve your goals. If you have ever watched my videos before, then you know that I am fascinated by the human brain and how it works. Now, there are two main ways in which our brains process information. The first way is through the logical side, which is also known as the left brain. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for rational thinking, problem-solving, and decision-making. The second way is through the emotional side, which is also known as the right brain. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for creativity, intuition, and feelings. We often think of these two sides of the brain as being separate from each other, but in reality they work together to help us make decisions. Our emotions can influence how we think, and our thoughts can influence how we feel. Persuasion is all about tapping into both sides of the brain to influence people's decisions. When you understand how the brain processes information, you can persuade people more effectively. Now, here are some of the most important things to keep in mind when trying to persuade someone. Number one is credibility. People are more likely to be persuaded by people they believe are credible. So, establish your credibility before you try to persuade someone. Number two is emotion. People are more likely to be persuaded when they feel something. So, appeal to people's emotions in order to persuade them. And number three is logic. People are more likely to be persuaded when they understand the logic behind something. So don't try to persuade someone without providing any reasoning. When you understand how the brain processes information, you can persuade people more effectively. Now let's look at the three pillars of persuasion and how you can use them to your advantage. The first pillar is ethos, which is the Greek word for character. Ethos refers to the credibility of the persuader. In order to be persuasive, you need to be seen as credible by your audience. This means establishing your expertise, trustworthiness, and overall character. For example, if you are trying to persuade your boss to give you a raise, you will need to establish your credibility by highlighting your accomplishments and contributions to the company. You will also need to show that you are trustworthy by demonstrating that you are reliable and responsible. Finally, you need to show that you are a person of good character by being honest, ethical, and respectful. The second pillar of persuasion is logos, which is the Greek word for reason or logic. Logos refers to the logical appeal of an argument. In order to be persuasive, you need to make a logical argument that appeals to reason. This means providing evidence to support your claims and addressing potential objections. For example, if you are trying to persuade your friend to see a movie with you, you might say something like, "I really want to see that new Star Wars movie and I think you will enjoy it too. It has great reviews, and I hear the story is amazing." In this case, you are appealing to your friend's sense of logic by providing reasons why they should see the movie with you. The third and final pillar of persuasion is pathos, which is the Greek word for emotion or suffering. Pathos refers to the emotional appeal of an argument. In order to be persuasive, you need to make an emotional connection with your audience. This means appealing to their values, beliefs, and feelings. For example, if you are trying to persuade your family to adopt a pet, you might say something like, Adopting a pet would be a great way for us to show our love and compassion for animals and give a homeless pet a loving home. In this case, you are appealing to your family's sense of emotion by emphasizing the values of love and compassion. Now that we've covered the basics of persuasion, let's look at some of the most powerful persuasion techniques. One of the most effective techniques is the foot in the door technique. This is a method where you start with a small request and then work your way up to a larger one. For example, if you want to ask your boss for a raise, you might start by asking for a small raise and then work your way up to a larger one. Another powerful technique is the door in the face technique. This is a method where you start with a large request and then follow it up with a smaller one. For example, if you want to ask your friend for a favor, you might start by asking for a huge favor and then follow it up with a smaller one. One of the most effective persuasion techniques is the foot in the door technique. This is a method where you start with a small request and then work your way up to a larger one. For example, if you want to ask your boss for a raise, you might start by asking for a small raise and then work your way up to a larger one. Another powerful technique is the door in the face technique. This is a method where you start with a large request and then follow it up with a smaller one. For example, if you want to ask your friend for a favor, you might start by asking for a huge favor and then follow it up with a smaller one. Now, to be an excellent persuader, you need to be aware of the potential biases that might be influencing your thinking. One of the most common biases is confirmation bias. This is the tendency to seek out and interpret information in a way that confirms our existing beliefs. For example, if you believe that women are bad drivers, you might only pay attention to instances where you see a woman driving poorly and ignore instances where you see a man driving poorly. Another common bias is anchoring bias. This is the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive. For example, if you are negotiating a salary and the other party mentions a high number first, you might end up anchoring your expectations to that number even if it is not realistic. Now, let's talk about how to make money with persuasion. The most obvious way is to become a salesperson. Sales is a career that relies heavily on persuasion. If you are good at persuading people, you can earn a good living as a salesperson. Another way to make money with persuasion is to become a marketing or advertising executive. These are careers that require a strong understanding of consumer behavior and persuasion. If you are good at understanding what motivates people and how to influence their decisions, you can be successful in these fields. There are many different ways to make money with the language of business. It's a versatile skill set that can be used in many different contexts. Whether you want to start your own business, advance in your career, or simply improve your communication skills, the language of business can help you achieve your goals. Just remember to always use it ethically and responsibly. If you enjoyed this video, then check out this video over here. I'll see you next time.